Alright, before we go on, please share and like my video and subscribe if you aren't already subscribed. My goal is to reach 500 subscribers by the end of this year, and I'm hoping that you guys can help me reach that. So, please share, like, subscribe, and help me reach my goal. Okay, now back to the video.
Hey, you! What?
I'm Francesca Fiorentini, and in this episode, we're talking about the growing Christian nationalist movement in the US and how it's tearing down the separation between church and state.
Oh, brother.
This super right-wing version of Christianity has crept into all branches of government, and they've got a lot of thoughts on who's in your bed, what's in your uterus, and which God you pray to.
For the most part, they don't care of who you sleep with, as long as they are a consenting adult. And as for the uterus thing, no, that's not what it's about. It's about protecting the unborn child. And for the religion, they don't really care. If you're talking about the fact that the supposed Muslim ban, one, it's not a Muslim ban. Two, Muslims do have a major problem with their religion, at least the ones from the Middle East.
Newsbroke has looked at right-wing evangelicals in America before, and how much their walking 7 deadly sins of a president is ironically a messiah for their anti-gay,
Trump is the first president going into office being pro-gay marriage.
anti-choice,
It's called anti-murder.
Jerusalem for the Jews to start a war in which they die or convert agenda.
For one, that's specifically for evangelicals who want that so highly. And that's not probably what they are wanting. I'm sure they want them to go to heaven. I think they don't want them to actually die. And just to bring it up, because your little YouTube channel here in the United States is run by a radical Islamic country, and they just want all Jews to die, period. In fact, they want everyone to die who isn't Muslim, and their specific version of Muslim. So I think I'll take the evangelicals over the Muslims.
70% of white evangelicals still support this president because, as one Christian activist who worked for Ted Cruz and the RNC explains, glaring hypocrisies are also a gift from God.
I will say, Trump, Stormy Daniels, all the scandals been going, what he did with porn law. All right, fine. That's really bad, reprehensible. But what he has done with Israel will cause God to bless the nation. What he has done with pro-life will cause God to bless the nation. What he has done with righteous judges, God will use flawed people to do the right things.
Yes, Trump is the perfect vehicle for evangelicals, kind of the way that rats were the perfect vehicle for the bubonic plague.
Yeah, having an affair is not the same as death. And quite frankly, they're not being hypocritical because there have actually been some very reprehensible people in the Bible who committed far worse things than what Trump has done. And they were used, according to the Bible, to do God's will. For example, King David, who had an affair with his best friend's wife, much like Trump, well, except for the best friend part. And he then later had his best friend sent to the front lines, basically trying to get him killed. I don't think Trump has done anything like that.
Right-wing Christianity in the US has been hard at work, carrying out the agenda of Christian nationalism.
It wouldn't be that bad at all. In fact, evangelicals are even changing their minds on things like gay marriage and other LGBT issues. And evangelicals are not the only Christian group. There are a lot of Christians, and they all disagree on a lot. And again, I would like to say, the worst Christian denomination is still 100 times better than the religion that is funding your organization.
Religious liberty, the freedom of Americans to worship any god and be free from having any religion imposed on them, is enshrined in the Constitution. And yet, while religious liberty cases used to mostly help religious minorities, they're now being reconfigured by the dominant religion as the right to discriminate, especially against the LGBTQ community.
I'm not a fan of discrimination based on your sex, race, or religion, or any of that. But whether you like it or not, the federal government civil rights acts are technically unconstitutional.
They're the kind of state laws that allow adoption centers to discriminate against same-sex couples, or last year's court decision that upheld a Colorado baker's right not to bake a cake for a gay couple. And don't forget the ruling that gave one craft store permission to deny contraceptive health care coverage to its employees.
I don't like any of those things either, except for the last one there, but that's just how it is. You can be as much of a bigot as you want to be legally, and there's nothing that the federal government should do about it. And as for that last one there, well, I wouldn't want to be forced to have to pay for you to be able to have sex. That's a you problem, not a me problem. And again, that also is unconstitutional to force a business to have to provide those things. Inaction is not the same as action. You can't force someone to do something.
Today, religious liberty is basically a way to insulate businesses and people from anti-discrimination laws by claiming that to not discriminate would be against their religious beliefs, which is kind of like telling your partner that not cheating would be the real cheating because you'd be cheating yourself out of Brandon from yoga. See how that makes sense?
That's a false equivalence. I know you're technically making a joke here, but still, that's a false equivalence.
Most recently, religious liberty was used to pass the so-called Save Chick-fil-A bill in Texas, because Texas has nothing if not strange priorities. The governor signed the bill after San Antonio barred the fast food chain from opening a location in its airport.
Yeah, that is actual discrimination. That is actually breaking the Constitution. The Constitution protects people from the government.
In case you missed it, Chick-fil-A's CEO is a documented homophobe, and the company has donated millions to anti-gay groups that promote things like conversion therapy.
That's all bullshit, and I'll leave a link to Roaming Millennial's video in which she explained this.
The Save Chick-fil-A bill prevents any government entity from taking any steps that would adversely affect a business over the company's so-called religious liberty.
Quite frankly, there wasn't even a need to have that bill because that city was already breaking a constitutional amendment, specifically the First Amendment.
The entire premise of this bill is to make sure that the government is forced to embrace a company that advocates for discrimination.
Then you're gonna really have a big problem with the First Amendment.
The Trump administration recently decided to bar health clinics that give or refer people for abortions from receiving any federal funding, even though there were already restrictions in place to keep federal money from funding abortion itself.
It's called fungibility, you dumb. And quite frankly, I don't think any charity organization should be receiving government funding, regardless of whether they perform abortions or not.
The court ruled that Christian-backed crisis pregnancy centers that deliberately mislead women about abortion,
They did not.
they allowed the ban on transgender people serving in the military to go into effect.
Someone with a mental illness that causes potentially severe depression should not be in the military, especially when the military people who come back from combat already have a high depression and suicide rate. Anyways, I'm done with this bull video. She is an utter idiot when it comes to history and the Constitution. Because if you really think that we're having a problem of Christian nationalism taking over the country, well, hate to break it to you, but the Christian religion has actually less of a stronghold now than it did 50 years ago. To think that we're somehow going to become the Handmaid's Tales or something like that is absolutely retarded. Look, I don't like discrimination. I'm gay myself. I don't want to be discriminated because of my sexual orientation or because the fact that I want to my boyfriend. That's all for this video. If you liked it, please give it a like, subscribe, share it, comment down below and tell me what you thought. Follow me on my social media. Support my content if you really liked my video. And I'll see y'all later.